Hi guys, Rick with Let's Level Up, and tonight we're going to be doing another game review. We're going to take a look at a Gothic horror game, which is, one of my favorite genres there is. It's also a deck builder, which is definitely not one of my favorite genres. My main complaint with deck builders has been, and probably always will be, is that it tends to feel a little bit like a multiplayer game of solitaire. And you're going to see this argument all over the net. You're going to see it on the forums and Twitter and all that stuff. Some people really agree with me here, some people not so much. Those are big fans of deck builders. The game we're talking about here is a flagship game from Sixpence Games, and it's designed by Thomas Elliott. This is Professor Pugnacious' portfolio of Perils, Pugilism, and Perfidy. This is a lot of title for such a small box. And again, it's a Gothic horror theme, and the theme is perfect with the execution here. I do have a couple small comments, mainly regarding the rule book that we'll hit at the end of this video. So definitely, if you're looking forward to our post thoughts, you want to skip how the game is played, you can skip towards the end, and those will be there. Essentially, this game, like many deck builders, is going to focus on a strike value, or they call it fight, and a buy value, which they're going to call skill. Now with my buy, I'm going to be able to buy certain cards from my card queue that's in front of me. And I'll have 5 different cards which I can purchase. At the end of the turn, I'm going to take the card that's on the leftmost side and pass it to the player on the left. And then every other opponent is going to do that as well. The thing that makes this game unique is that we're taking our turns simultaneously, so that each phase of the game we're going to be playing together. And once that we're all finished, or all players have agreed that they're finished, we'll move on to the next stage of the turn. And then finally, when all the stages are finished, we'll go to the next turn. I think that's going to help a lot with my main complaint of deck building games. I also really like the failure mechanic here. So with our fight value, we're going to be fighting different creatures and overcoming traps from Gothic horror kind of lore. And failure tokens can be given to our opponents to reduce their value in whatever skill check they're trying to do. If their skill check or fight value does not meet the trap and or creature, they lose the fight and something bad happens to them. So overall, this game is executed very well. I have a few slight concerns, which again we'll get at the end of the video. But right now, we're going to open up this box and show you the components and how to play. Alright, so like many deck building games, we're going to start out with our 2 primary options here. Here's my starting deck of 10 cards. Now 3 of these are going to be what are called fight cards, and the rest of these, are going to be fight cards, and then the rest of the 7 are going to be skill cards. Now again, fight I'm going to use to try to combat here the enemies, and skill I'm going to use to buy cards. Now, the cards you're going to buy are going to be upgrades to fight and skill. For instance, Greater Fight has 3, and it's going to provide a bonus of 2 rather than just 1. And the Greater Skill card, which I actually have over across the table, is going to, again, cost 3 and provide 2 skill. Now, these are always going to be available, so you're going to want to have them somewhere in the middle of the table, where all players have access to. The next thing you're going to have is the main deck. Now this is all the other cards here, and you're going to deal 5 out in front of each player. Now these 5 cards are referred to as the card queue, and all the different 5 card queues are referred to as the card ring. Now, if I decide to buy one of these cards on my turn, it's going to go into my discard pile. Then all of the rest of these cards are going to shift down. We're going to replace it with the next card in the main deck. And then at the end of the turn, this card, the leftmost card, is going to pass to the player on my left. And then I would get the player on my right's card, and then all of these would shift back down. So for instance, in that example, I would get another card here. Now all of these cards are going to provide a better way to do fight and to do build, and going to be able to expand our deck and our idea of what we're wanting to do here. Now overall, this is a pretty generic buy fight concept until you start getting into what is called fail. Now fail allows us to give tokens to players that is going to reduce their skill check on a trap or combat. So any cards that we play during our play phase that have failure on it, we're going to acquire 1 token. Now we can give these tokens to a player whenever they're making their choice to who they're going to fight, which we'll get into in a second. You can see here in the top right corner, this is the cost to buy the card, and this is what it's going to be yielding. So this first glass tube here has a 1 next to it. It's saying it's going to give me 1 skill, and the fight card has 1 in the second, which is going to be 1 fight. The third option here is for failure. This is how much failure this card is going to yield. And then the final one is for draw. It's how many cards you can draw. Now, our main focus here is to acquire experience points. And we're going to acquire experience points by overcoming traps and creatures during our fight phase. Now, experience points are actually really well done here with these different tokens. They come in all sorts of different values. And at the end of the game, when somebody beats the final boss, or when we run out of our main deck, or we run out of our combat deck, we're going to accumulate who has the most points. He who has the most experience points at the end of the game wins the game. There are a couple other tokens here. Each player is going to receive a set of combat tokens, and whenever you go into your combat phase, you're going to secretly select the corresponding number of whatever combat card that you want to fight. Now, we're going to go ahead and just reset things really quick, and I'm going to zoom in on the combat thing, a combat row, and show you a little bit more into that. Now, each combat row is going to have 2 cards that are always going to be there. There's the dummy, which is the training dummy. It is the weakest card here and yields kind of the lowest value. If you win this fight, meaning if you beat the number in the top right of your total combat score after failures have been taken out, you're going to be able to trash a card of your choice that's in your hand or discard pile. And if you lose, nothing happens. The next numbers, 1, 2, and 3, are going to be randomized. There's going to be a deck of combat cards that come with the game. Now, each of these is kind of themed after the Gothic horror, and there's actually an expansion pack for this game that introduces a whole deck of basically zombies who get stronger the more zombies that are in the discard pile or on the combat row here, which is a lot of fun. Here we have an example is the Will-O-Wisp. It says if you win 2 experience points for every 3 additional total fight, 2 experience points. And if you lose, nothing happens. So this is a way for you to get, this is 3. If you beat it, you're going to get 2 experience points. If I have 9 fight on here, I can get a total of 6 experience points. The next one is the Clockwork Spider Queen. She's a 6 strength. And when you win, you get 5 experience points. If you lose, all other players draw 1 card. Next up, we have a trap. This is the Pondering Poison Trap. It is a 3 skill check. Now, all of these cards that we've talked about thus far have been fight checks. Traps have to deal with skill. So you have to play cards during your play phase and keep the skill if you want to try to take a trap. Now, if you win, you get 2 experience points, and all of your opponents discard a card. If you lose, you have to discard 3 cards from this trap. And finally, we have the base finale card, the Mechanical Abomination. Has a total fight strength of 11. And when you win, you get 12 experience points. The game ends. If you lose, you get 4 experience points and discard 4 cards. You cannot be the next player that targets this card. So when it comes to our combat phase, we're going to have a series of tokens that are going to match what I have set up here. Now, each player during their combat phase is going to secretly select one of the tokens and put them face down here on the question, so the question mark is up. Now, during this time, after all of these have been set, you're going to be able to use your failure tokens on somebody. So remember, we know what they've played during their play phase. So if I know I have a guy that has a 7 strength, he may be trying to come in here for the Clockwork Spider Queen. So just to be safe, I can give him 3 failure tokens to reduce his total strength down to 4. Now when they reveal, you can see if they in fact targeted the right monster or not. In this case, this guy just targeted the dummy and is going to take out the training dummy to be able to trash one of his cards. Now, if he had chosen part 2, if he or she had chosen 2, they would essentially lose the fight now because their total strength is at a 4 where it used to be a 7. So there are a couple things in this game that make this game unique. First and foremost, we're going to be playing together at the same time. So each phase we go through, we're all going to be playing simultaneously. And that's going to start with the first phase of drawing 5 cards and introducing the play phase. So here I can play any number of the cards from my hand to see if I can get the biggest value here. And again, this time I've got 3 skill and 2 fight. So let's say I'm going to play 2 fight and I'm going to play my 3 skill here. Now, I don't have to play these cards if I don't want to. Any cards that I don't want to play, I can hold on to, or I can simply discard to get them out of the game, or rather out of the play cycle. So in this case, I have 2 fight, which I can attack the training dummy, and I have 3 skill, and I can go and I can actually buy this card here, Raw Talent, which allows us to get 1 draw and 1 skill. So when I play this card, I can draw a card and then get another skill. So whenever all the players are done playing their cards, we'll proceed to the next phase, which is the buy phase. Now in the buy phase, we can go and purchase cards. For instance, this one. Again, all of these are going to slide down. We're going to get the next card from the main deck. And then after all the players are finished buying, we're going to slide the leftmost card down to the next player. Or rather, to the left player. After the buy phase, we're going to proceed into the combat phase. Sorry, quick correction here. The recovery phase is the final phase of the game, and during this phase, we're going to reset our hand to 5 cards and also slide the leftmost card in our card queue to the left player. Not after the buy phase, it's something that actually happens at the end of the recovery phase. So all of these cards are going to be reconciled. We're going to discard all of these cards and then reset our hand back to 5 cards. Now, like a lot of deck builders, we're going to essentially keep drawing from our deck until we run out. Once we run out, we will recycle our discard pile and then have another set of cards to be able to draw from. Overall, this game is going to play a lot like a lot of other deck builders, but it's going to have a couple new tricks and new twists that are going to keep things nice and refreshing. Alright, that's an overall look of how this game is going to be played. I think it's going to be best if you play with 4 players. You can play this again from 2 to 4 players. I think definitely you want to try to get as many of that as possible. It should make for a better experience, I think, with the failure mechanic. If you like deck building games and if you like Gothic horror games, Professor Pugnacious may be right up your alley. But follow us here and we'll give you our final thoughts. Well, that's it for the Professor's portfolio. Professor Pugnacious, as this game is actually going to be called. I think overall this game is a pretty solid deck builder. So if you're a fan of Gothic horror, if you're a fan of deck building, this may be a good game for you. I'm not 100% sold on the artwork, not necessarily in the cards, but the way things are kind of executed within this genre. I think from a player experience, some of the cards can be a little hard to read, and some of the visual elements can be a little bit muddied, and I think that's kind of what Thomas was going for in the theme. So this may just be my personal choice. I think for my player experience, I'd like a cleaner look in the card. Just me, though. My biggest complaint with this game happens to be within the rule manual. I really didn't like the way things were laid out, and I think Thomas does a good job at explaining how to play the game in the rule booklet. It's just a harder rule booklet to read because of the way things are presented to us. So if you check the game out and you agree, maybe we can meet up on Board Game Geek or something and put together our player-created one and make it a better experience. Or, you know what, that's something easily that Sixpence could fix in the future just by updating that rulebook to include more pictures and more schematics and a better detail on how to set up the game to play. Now on to what I like about this game. Now I really like the fact that the players are taking their turns simultaneously. This is going to allow for a better player dynamic at the table, and again, all of us kind of secretly working against each other but taking our turns at the same time is going to make for, I think, a more strategic deck building experience. The ability that each turn I can trash my weakest cards and get better, or to make room for my better cards, I really enjoy that, with the emphasis of the training dummy, and also with just, if I don't want to do anything, I can just trash a card. I think that's really neat and a good way to, again, get rid of the cards I don't want to make room for the better cards. I also like the combat system and the failure implementation here. It really kind of allows me to jab that knife into my friend's back just a little deeper, to make the game a bit more fun for me. Overall, I think Professor Pugnacious' portfolio of Perils, Pugilism, and Perfidy is a fun game, and you should check it out.